In this lesson, we're going to learn about writing algebraic expressions. Last week you learned about writing numeric expressions, but this week we're going to be taking it to the next level. And we're going to be doing some algebra with algebraic expressions. Are you excited? Now let's look at the essential question. How can you use an algebraic expression to model a situation? Well, let's check this out. You can use what you know about numerical expressions to help you write algebraic expressions. An algebraic expression contains at least one variable. A variable is a letter or symbol that stands for a number or numbers. These are algebraic expressions. Square plus 3 or blank plus 3. This is the variable that stands for a value, an unknown value. Here, 12 divided by n. Do you see the variable? If you said n was the variable, you're correct. It stands for an unknown value. 4 times star. Yep, the star is the variable. Look at this one. It looks a little more complicated. Do you see a variable? N3 plus the quantity b minus 5? Yep, it's right there, the b. You can make a model or write an algebraic expression to describe a situation and to help you find an unknown number. Making a model is very, very helpful when solving math problems. Making a model is also known as drawing a picture. And that is one of my favorite strategies to use when I'm solving math problems. Now let's take a look at these models. It says here to write an algebraic expression to match the model. Now, let's look at this section A. Let the red square represent 1 and the yellow hexagon represent an unknown number. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 red squares and a yellow hexagon. So to write this in words, we would say 8 plus a number, that's the hexagon. And that could be written like this in words. 8 plus a number, hexagon. To write an algebraic expression, to write it in symbols and our math code, we would write 8 plus a yellow hexagon. Now let's look at this multiplication one. It says let a yellow hexagon represent an unknown number. And I see here 1, 2, 3, 4 yellow hexagons. Well, to write this in words, I would say 4 times a number n. In symbols, how would we write this? There's several ways actually that we could write this. The most basic way that you probably know is this way, 4 times n. But are you ready to learn some algebra and learn how big kids will write 4 times n? One way that they'll write it is 4 n's, because this means the same thing as having 4 n's. If there's no symbol in between a number and a variable, that means you're going to multiply. So 4n works. Another way you can write it is by doing 4 times n. Now that you're starting to learn algebra, and you're going to see us using variables like letters b and n, and y down here, and j, x is a variable that is used too often. And so you don't get confused with the x and the multiplication symbol. Whenever you get older, the big kids will write it like this and put a dot for the multiplication symbol. So that's another way that you can write it. Another way you can write 4 times n is by putting 4 and n right beside n in parentheses. That also means 4 times n. If you see a number directly beside parentheses, that means multiply as well. Look at all those different ways you can write 4 times n. See, math is pretty cool, isn't it? Now let's look down here at division. This whole rectangle has a value of y. And that's what this symbol here means. And this whole rectangle has been divided into 1, 2, 3, 4 equal groups. So we could say y divided by 4. And these are the symbols that we could use to show that. All right, here's another one. Here's subtraction. If you look here at this number line, we're starting at 0. And we jump to some value. We don't know what it is. We're calling that j. And then we go back from that value 1, 2, 3, 4. So we could say J minus 4. Another way that we could write this is by saying 4 less than J. Now, how would we write that in symbols? Well, if we were to have 4 less than J, or J minus 4, we would write it just like this. All right, now let's look at another one. Now we're going to look at a word problem, and we're going to model, which means draw a picture of this to match the words, and then we're going to write an expression. So the first thing we're going to do is draw a picture or make a model, and then we're going to write an expression. So let's look at this one. Kylie buys a ticket to the water park. She spends $6 for lunch. How much money does Kylie spend for a ticket and lunch? Well, we don't know how much a ticket is, so it tells us here to let P represent the price of a ticket. Okay, well, I'm going to imagine that this value here is P, the price of a ticket. And together with that is the $6 that she spends for lunch. So if I put these two values together, this amount here, from here to here, this total value, would tell me how much she spent for a ticket and lunch. And I could write that expression as P plus 6. All right, let's look at this next one. Daniel sees some dolphins while he's at the water park. He sees 8 times as many turtles as dolphins. How many turtles does Daniel see? Well, we don't know how many dolphins he saw, so it tells us here to let D represent the number of dolphins Daniel sees. So I'm going to make a rectangle here that represents the value of D, how many dolphins he sees. The question's asking how many turtles does he see, and our clue is that he sees 8 times as many turtles as dolphins. So if we take this and we make 8 of these rectangles put together, that would represent 8 times as many turtles as dolphins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We need 2 more. So there's 8 times as many turtles as dolphins. So this whole amount here, this total value, would represent the number of turtles. Now we can write our expression as 8 D's. Remember, that's the same as 8 times D. What's another way we could write it? You're right, 8 times D. Did any of you think of this one? 8 times D with the big kid multiplication sign there. How about this one? 8 times D. All of those mean the same thing. They're just different ways to write it. All right, now let's look at one more. Here we're going to write an expression to match the words. Doesn't ask us to draw a picture here or to make a model. We're just going to write the expression. So let's look at A. Annie spends 45 minutes going on the rides. Each ride lasts the same amount of time. Well, we're going to let R represent the number of rides. And the total time that she spends is 45 minutes. We don't know how many rides she rode, but we know if we divide by that number, that'll tell us how much time she spent on each ride. So this expression represents how much time Annie spent on each ride. All right, let's look at this last one before you get to do some on your own. Carl rents some tubes from the water park for $3 each. Okay, we're going to let T represent the number of tubes. So we need to take the number of tubes, which we don't know, so we're going to call it T, times the cost of the tubes, and that's $3 each. So we're going to write our expression like this, T times 3, or T times $3. The expression represents the amount Carl spent on tubes.